Welcome back. We are living in the information age, aren't we? There's information at our fingertips. Filming on my smartphone right now, I can Google whatever I need to Google. Google is a verb now. And it's crazy. I'd like to talk about information today in this video, specifically free versus paid for information. Before we get started in on that topic, I have a couple of announcements. 1, prices on my scheduled sessions have decreased. 2, the audio download is now an offer on my website. And we also have a podcast, another audio medium through which you can, get a little more conscious in your life, get a little more present. That is the intent of the podcast. It's called What's the Mood? And it's all about just feeling out the vibes of the week. Twice a week, actually, Tuesdays and Fridays. You can check out the first official episode on my site right now. The next one will be up on Friday, and by then I'm hoping it'll be up on iTunes. So, information is so accessible to us nowadays. We have a hard time discerning, unless we really get conscious about the information that we're consuming, what is good for us and what is bad for us in terms of what we're actually reading, what we're actually consuming. This is where I'll share a bit about my experience in learning about astrology. I did it all from Google searches for over 8 years now. I've been in the depths, I've been in the trenches of learning astrology, even as I have my business that is centered around astrology. Yes, I am an infinite student, and so are you. Never think otherwise. We are always learning. And I love the internet as a resource because there are so many minds out here sharing what they know to be true. I have to admit, growing up, I watched a lot of astrologers on YouTube or read a lot of stuff on all these different websites that talked about astrological topics, and some of it was in a fear-based lens, coming from old paradigm thinking. Now, they say once you put something out on the internet, it's out on the internet, it's there for someone to see, and you never know who is going to come across it. So in that way, we have to be mindful when we're putting out information, how that information might be viewed. I think about this a lot when it comes to putting out content concerning very specific things in astrology. I've done that before. I even have unfinished series about, say, the Venus and Mars signs or the rising signs that I've paused on because I need to make sure that that feeling and that energy that I'm putting out there is completely objective and coming from a place where the knowledge and the resource will at least be, for the next maybe 5 years, useful to folks. Because the fact of the matter is, all information, not just astrological information, shifts through time. And it's unfortunate but true that when we publish something, that has a timestamp on it. When you read something from 10 years ago, you have to remember that it was published 10 years ago, and that it's coming from a person whose perception was most likely not thinking so far ahead 10 years in the future. Now, as long as you keep perceptions like that in mind, it's not just time, it can be who the person is that is writing that. It can be what culture they're from, their age, their sexual identity, gender identity, sexuality. There's so much to keep record of in terms of where someone's perceptions might taint the information that they are channeling. Even if it's not a spiritual thing, you're channeling this information, you're discerning it, you're putting it into words, you're creating a piece of information, you have to be aware. And that takes a lot of conscious effort. When you're just surfing the internet looking for an answer to what a Venus in Leo and a Venus in Cancer would be like in a relationship, for instance, you're not necessarily thinking about how conscious the creator of this information was. You just want the answer. And that's totally 100% valid. It's the world we live in now. As I said, we're in the information age. It's age of Aquarius. The internet and all of its beauty is in our lives. It's sunk its teeth into us. It's how you and I are connecting right now. You can't always rely on free information because, and this is where I'll bring it back to my experience once again, there can be parts of information that you intake, say when it comes to compatibility and astrology, that leads you down the road of thinking negatively about a situation. When in reality, we have to remember that we are completely 100% in control. Does it mean that you might not still come to a conclusion that you and this person, you, your Venus in Leo, them, their Venus in Cancer, and all the other complex parts of each of you, does it mean that the conclusion you might come to that you two aren't really a good match would be invalid just because you looked up your compatibility on the internet? No. But you gotta be conscious, once again. Is the information making you feel fearful of the relationship, or is it just adding an objective layer to your overall consensus? Because a lot of the times, especially when it comes to astrological concepts, we as humans in our past, in this old paradigm thinking, in this old way of understanding astrological concepts, have segmented so many different parts of astrology and given value to certain combinations and devalued other combinations. That just isn't how things work anymore. And trust me, I'm definitely partial to just quickly Googling something, reading some random blog post and saying, okay, yeah, and then making my own judgment. But you can't help but think for a second that, like, it's just so easy to get that information. Are you really making your own thought, or are you relying on the thought of another to validate a fear that you might have? So where am I going with this? Well, take when we pay to go to university, and part of our tuition cost goes toward using the university's digital library and all the journal articles written by professionals in the field who have been vetted, who have gotten to a point in their practices to be able to speak objectively, and know that every journal article in a digital database for a university is going to be totally free of unconscious perceptions and biases. There is something to putting your value into something and then being able to discern the information that you are looking at far better, because you put something in it. You put a part of your value, literally through money, a tool that you have and you wield, that gives you power. You put that in this information bank, or this class you're taking with a spiritual leader that you look up to, or in the yoga class, in your Reiki class. I really do think I would have been able to get to where I am today without doing so much of the shadow work that I've had to do to uncover where my fears come from, get rid of thought patterns that I've had about astrological concepts. If I had just invested in some sort of class or program, mentorship, what have you, if I had known that those were a thing. So what's the takeaway here? When we intake free information, which you are intaking by watching this video, by Googling anything that you do, you're intaking the information for free. You didn't put anything into it in order for your discernment to unconsciously be turned on. Hopefully. Hopefully when you pay for something, you want to make sure that it's right for you, right? You need to be really conscious and grounded about the information that you're intaking. Otherwise, it can definitely take root in your psyche in bad places. It might get into the good places, it might go into the light, but it can definitely seep into those dark corners, those deep closets where you push everything that you don't want to think about. When you pay for information, though, you can be a lot more discerning with what information does and doesn't vibe with you. When it does vibe with you, you know that you've put a little bit more into that experience. You're getting so much more out of it. This leads me into thinking about so many other things, like our relationship with money and how much we value ourselves versus the value we put on our money, how we let money control our lives. And it's so personal to me that I definitely have to sit on this after this video. Those are my thoughts today on information. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, of course leave them in a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Once again, you can check out the podcast on sauceastrology.com/podcast, and you can check out my new offerings like the scheduled live sessions and audio downloads in the link in my bio. I'll be seeing y'all. Have a great day. Bye for now.